I would love that as well.
There's a lot of good weed out there.
Welcome to Sex Talk with my mom. I'm Cam Potter.
And I'm Karen Lee Potter.
That's my mother.
And that's my son.
We chat about sex on a weekly basis and all the things you typically don't talk about with a parent.
We like to make the most uncomfortable conversations comfortable.
So strap in,
strap on,
and enjoy the ride. Welcome to Sex Talk with my mom. I'm Cam Potter.
And I'm Karen Lee Potter.
We are delighted to talk about sex on a weekly basis for your edutainment.
Edutainment, that's a new one even for you.
Yes, education and edutainment.
I like that, edutainment. Today's going to be a great show.
Today we have a phenomenal show. Once in a blue moon, we have a guest on the show.
Because, you know, we can't resist. I couldn't resist this one.
You found this wonderful guest.
Well, I went with your sister to a panel on Queer Eye.
The show.
Which is up for like how many? 5, 6 Emmys? I don't even know. Anyway, I was taken aback by the episode they showed. And then the panel came out, and it was basically Angel's story. Angel Flores.
Angel Flores, who is a Queer Eye hero, a trans activist, a powerlifting champion, and an Olympic weightlifting coach.
It just seems so like unbelievable, you know.
The amount of accomplishments here.
Yes, and you're what? Are you 23? Well, how old are you?
Yeah, I'm 23.
And so for our sneaky freaks, we have Angel on the show today. So welcome,
Hi.
Angel.
Hi.
Hello.
We're delighted to have you.
The reason that we got her on the show is because I got so moved when I heard the story that I literally stalked her into the parking lot.
I could only imagine what happened.
I was with your sister, and I'm like, I just have to go talk to Angel. And she's like, what are you doing now, Mom? Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. And I'm like, beelined out the door. Literally, she's trying to get in her car, and I'm like, wait.
I have never seen so much intent.
You ain't seen nothing yet.
Dude, so do you get this a lot? Are you a celebrity now that people recognize you on the street?
Oh, don't call me a celebrity. Yes, I get recognized on the street all the time.
Oh, damn.
Everybody comes up to me. I can't go get groceries anymore.
Get the fuck out. That's amazing.
You've made it when you can't get groceries. That's awesome. I wish I couldn't get groceries. I get groceries, no problem.
I mean, your episode was so moving. We watched it together. We were both basket
happened.
cases.
And, I got very emotional twice. I seen it in 2 weeks. And I was like, you know what? I just have to talk to her because what your message was so clear. And you guys have to all.
What is the message, man?
This message of, be yourself and until you're comfortable. She's nodding.
Yeah,
I'll let her tell her message, but I'm sorry if I was too intense. I tend to have a nickname called the bulldog. The bulldog comes from a reason. Anyway, but when I thought, well, our shows just seem to fit together. The messages that we always espouse is to be yourself, be confident, and to communicate with each other. And I thought what I saw between you and your father in particular was just incredible. And I figured, well, if she says no, that's the worst that can happen. I do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If she says no, I won't know what I missed. But if she says yes, well, here we are.
And here we are.
What have you found your message to be after going through the Queer Eye process? And
well, why don't we, before you get to that, can you want to explain what happened with the Queer Eye, and then maybe we'll understand what happened, because there's so much stuff going on here.
So it's a lot of stuff. So I was just a wee normal trans girl. I was about a year into transition. I was 20. I had just turned 22, and we were actually going through a tumultuous time with our living situation. We found a leak in our old apartment. It was really, really bad, and so we were kind of in between places, kind of homeless, kind of not.
So when you say we, are you talking about you and your partner? Or are you talking to your family?
Yeah.
Okay.
Me and my partner. So we were just kind of in this really we don't know what's going to happen. So then in the middle of that entire process, I get a call from the owner of the gym that I train at, Liberation Barbell Club. She's a close friend of mine. And she essentially was like, hey, you might get a call from a Netflix producer in about an hour. And I was like, excuse me? What do you can't just, didn't even say hi. Didn't even say it was just oh, you're going to get a call. And I was like, excuse me? And essentially she teamed up with several other people from the gym to nominate me, put my story out there, because they had seen that through my training and through my coaching, I was just working my hardest to not only help as many people as possible, but really just to be myself in a space that does not really want me to be myself, right?
Well, tell us about the gym itself. The gym is just not like a gym that I would go to. There's a lot of
It's
heavy,
a very traditional gym.
yeah. There's
Oh
messages.
yeah, it's very much a strength focused gym, and strength within the LGBTQ plus community. It's been called a queer gym. It's been called an all inclusive gym. I just say it's a home, right? It's a home where anybody can be there, anybody can train, anybody can find community, and truly we built it to a place where it's amazing, and there's so many unique individuals that show up.
Is it like an anomaly within the country? Is it, known?
I wouldn't say with like anomaly within the country, but I would say that it's anomaly within our industry, where we find that a lot of space. Like I know that there's plenty of gyms in the U.S. that I would not be able to walk into, or at least I would be very much escorted out or asked to leave, or people would not feel comfortable with me being there. And that's not just within like corporate commercial gyms, that's within like the local private gyms throughout the US. So,
which is such a tragedy. Cam and I both have never experienced that. So, I mean, just hearing this is so upsetting to me, but it makes sense.
It's definitely, it's a widespread problem where people just don't, I don't know whether it's ignorance or fear or something, where people just don't feel comfortable with trans people being in their space and just working out and living their lives like everybody else does. So to have a space that's made not necessarily for us, but for everybody, right? Where I have so many queer and trans friends who come to that space and feel completely comfortable to be who they are, who they need to be, right? And I know that I wouldn't be where I am right now without that safe space to be me, right?
It's awesome. So you got this call and they said, hey, come on the show, or we're coming to you?
So essentially it was like a multi-stage interview process where they're like half interviewing you, half dating you. I had to do a phone interview and then a Skype interview and then meet two producers for food.
Oh, wow.
And it was funny.
Wait, have you ever watched the show before this?
I was one of those kids that grew up watching, like 2014 first season came out and I was watching Queer Eye, like, oh, that'd be so funny if I was on Queer Eye one day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So like I knew everything that was happening basically as it happened. And yeah, so I met these producers for lunch and I'm sitting there telling my story, talking about like what it's like being me, what I've faced in the industry, what's up with my parents, what's up with my family, what's up with my friends. And I'm just enjoying my food and I look up and they're both just crying.
Oh,
and
my
I was
God.
like, oh, this is an important, like, this is a deep, heartfelt story that I didn't realize was a deep, heartfelt story.
You just, what were, before this point, because no one's seen the show or anything, what was it like for you growing up?
So I essentially spent 20 years with feeling like something was wrong and could never place what exactly it was, right? So throughout, I mean, I was in middle school, like dealing with sexuality before I even had the language to deal with sexuality, right? Because I was just convinced that there was something different with me. I didn't fit in anywhere. I didn't relate to people. I didn't feel like I was doing the right things, like physically. Like I physically did not feel like I was me, right? So moving into high school, it turned into full depression. I was struggling throughout the entirety of it. And
did you speak to anybody? Did you talk to your parents about it or any friends?
I tried. I was convinced I was gay for like years. Never went on a date with a boy. Never did anything with a boy. Like just went about my life, assuming I was gay, but never acting on it. Never wanting to, never needing to, and never had the language to really sit there and say like, oh, I'm trans, like I'm actually a woman. So it wasn't until I was well into college that I sat with a counselor and said like, I'm having these feelings. I'm like, when I say certain things, when I do certain things, it feels good. I feel euphoria. And when I say or do certain things, there's dysphoria, there's anxiety, that there's depression related to how I present, how I move about the world. And these are all things that young me just couldn't understand, right? Young me couldn't sit within his family and say, I need to wear something else today, right? It was just never a thought in our mind.
You were also doing something very traditionally masculine. You're playing a lot of sports. In Queer Eye, you talk about how you were an excellent football player.
Yeah.
So these are things that, this seems like an environment where it would be even harder to identify that part of yourself.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm surrounded by boys all day long, right? I have my set of guy friends who I still see all the time and or message all the time and keep in contact with. I was surrounded by football guys. I was surrounded by my dad and the family that he would bring along, which is very much small Latino, very, very traditional. So I truly was just never in a spot where I could sit and think, right? It was always just kind of like the only word I knew back then was, "Oh, you're gay." And that's all I knew.
Did your parents, did they ever say, "Are you gay"?
I came out to my mom as bisexual when I was 11.
How did she respond?
She didn't know how. She was just kind of like, okay, we're going to figure this out as we go. And really, it was my entire teenage years of her just kind of coming back and asking like, hey, like, how are we feeling? Checking in.
Oh, wow.
But even she just didn't have the space and the language to really ask what needed to be asked, you know? We had only had one singular conversation prior to me realizing for myself about a transgender person in general. And that's 20 years worth of life that we just did not talk about that certain thing.
But it's also it's actually, even in my lifetime, it's a new concept. A friend of mine went through the same thing with their daughter. And she wasn't gay, but she knew something wasn't right, and she considered herself at that point a fifth gender. That's what she called us, because that term non-binary wasn't even around then. Yeah,
like the language that's used now is so incredibly new, and I feel very privileged to even have the language to say what's wrong with me, right? Or not what's wrong with me, what's different about me, because so many people before me just could never place that.
So I read somewhere that you listened to a podcast where one of the hosts came out as trans, and that might have helped you realize what you were going through. Is that right?
Oh, it was the moment. That was the crack of the egg. That was like, I'm sitting there in the car driving to San Antonio from Austin, about an hour drive. So I'm like, okay, I have an hour-long podcast. And like within 5 minutes, she's talking about her experience as a child and then her experience as a teenager. And I'm like, she doesn't fit in. She relates more to girls. She wants to be around girls more often, but it was never about romance. It was always just about community. And so to sit there and not feel like I was relating to that person, but feel like they were relating to me, that was a whole new experience. That was just a whole new, like, wow, that's my experience. That's what I'm feeling. And then to immediately text my best friend and my partner, who I just started seeing at the time. I don't know why I did this, but I texted them immediately and was like, this might be a thing. And just the feeling of calm that came over me, right? Of that felt right, saying that I'm trans.
Wow.
That felt like it needed to be said.
I got such goosebumps.
Like it was just a snap of a finger. And then for the next year, I just could not stop thinking about it. Like it was just like always in the back of my head. I'm doing small things. Like, for example, in Olympic weightlifting, when I was competing with the UT team.
Like everyone does.
Yeah, like everyone does. It's a big culture in weightlifting for everybody to wear like leggings and spandex because you don't want clothing getting in the way of the barbell. So, you know, I was like prancing around in my men's leggings, like, you know, showing it off and being really happy. And it's those tiny moments over the course of that year that gave me the evidence I needed, right? Of like, this is something I need to follow through with.
That's awesome. Sneaky freaks, have you ever visited a sex toy shop and walked in and just been just completely inundated with dildos and vibrators and lubes and cleansers, all sorts of shit? You don't know which way is up.
We have a solution for you.
We got the solution. It's called Like a Kitten. Like a Kitten has got you covered by sending you a subscription box with all of your sexy essentials.
This spring, they have an awakening box. Cam, I am so psyched about this.
What has it got in that awakening box, Mother?
Strawberry nipple cream, cheeky apple lube, and melting rose petals for the bath.
Do you know they also have a pink flower nipple suction set?
Oh, that sounds fun.
Or you can choose to get glass Kegel balls. Like a Kitten has a team of expert curators that know fun things that you're going to want in your box.
You know, you people ask us, how do you spice it up? You get yourself a Like a Kitten box. They have a spring subscription box, which is $79, which is a great deal since most of the products in the box retail for well over $150.
If you're looking for a bachelorette gift, a birthday present, this is excellent. And a portion of Like a Kitten sales go to charities to empower women and support their education and health. To celebrate spring, Like a Kitten is offering our listeners 15% off and free shipping when you go to likeakitten.com/mom or enter code MOM at checkout. Just go to likeakitten.com/mom or use code MOM to get 15% off these incredible boxes.
How about this? This spring, your flower will thank you.
Likeakitten.com/mom. That link is in the episode's description. Sneaky friends, is something preventing you from achieving your goals?
I mean, we always talk about confidence. Is there something that is stopping you from
Being who you are.
being who you are? And does it interfere with your happiness?
Are you in need of therapy? Because our sponsor provides exactly that in the most easy way. We're talking about BetterHelp. BetterHelp.com/sextalk is where you can find your own licensed professional therapist.
BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with this therapist. You can connect in a safe and private online environment. It's so convenient.
Yeah, you can start communicating in under 48 hours. And it can be really challenging to find your own therapist if you're just on your own. BetterHelp makes it super easy. You can send your counselor messages anytime. You get timely and thoughtful responses. Plus, you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions.
You're not going to have to sit in a waiting room, very uncomfortable, and waiting for your ex-boyfriend to walk out through the door, which happened to a friend of mine.
Oh, and if you don't like your therapist, you can easily switch to another one. BetterHelp is convenient, it's professional, it's affordable, it's confidential. And in fact, so many people have been using BetterHelp that they are recruiting additional counselors in all 50 states. How do you like that?
It's an unbelievable thing.
I want you to start living a happier life today.
I mean, as a sneaky freak, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting our sponsor at BetterHelp.com/sextalk.
Join over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/sextalk. You know what? One of the moments in Queer Eye that really moved me was when they were actually interviewing your partner, and they kind of asked her about her experience as you were going through this transition, and she goes on to talk about how much, it was just the love for you, that she didn't care how you identified, and that wasn't going to be a make or break for the relationship. I mean, were you scared about that potentially coming between you two?
See, I don't think there was fear initially, maybe a little bit of anxiety, like how is she going to respond? But I feel like something within me kind of knew that, you know what, whether or not she is okay with this, I'm going to be okay. Right. And she came back immediately and was like, we'll talk about it. Let's talk about it. And she's the one that actually threw me my first sports bra. She's the one that like first pushed me to do certain things. And then through quarantine, when I started really looking into transition and then transitioning through it, I was given the space to do so by her. Right. She gave me the opportunity to talk through what I was feeling and really experiment with what I needed.
You're such an inspiration. I can't imagine like anyone listening to our show right now, especially that is in that conflictual stage and not knowing why they don't feel comfortable in their own body, to hear what you have to say and have this aha moment the way you did, which is what could you ask for more than that? You're like a role model. Do you feel like there's a responsibility on you as a weightlifter?
Oh, most definitely. There's like the responsibility of being a role model, being like somebody to look up to. It's pressure, but it's pressure that I welcome, right? Because I know that I've met so many wonderful little trans kids at rallies who come up and they're just like so overjoyed to not only meet me, but to introduce themselves to me, right? It's not about me and their heroes. It's like, oh, you're Angel. This is who I am. These are my pronouns. This is what I do. And it's amazing. And to see the smiles on their faces when they're just like talking about their lives, it's absolutely ecstatic, and it only pushes me more, right? And I said it was pressure, but that's the pressure that I want, right? It's the pressure of you're doing good things, you're helping people,
and you're so young too to know this.
You're also in a position being in powerlifting.
Yeah.
I mean, this has been in the news. This is like such a hot button issue that people are like, it's stupidly controversial. And so how has it been for you being in that environment and being a vocal advocate for trans people?
It's really just about education and teaching, right? Because there's so many people that just have not they don't have the experience that I've had, right? Like I've stood in front of people and said, oh, my hands shrink. My feet have shrunk. I've lost height. My very second day of hormones, I couldn't lift what I was lifting 2 days ago.
Wow.
So this is all because
I
you're taking female hormones.
Yes, this is all because I'm taking a testosterone blocker and estrogen, and then later on, now I'm on an implant, which keeps everything down by itself. So
I know
I'm at
about
the point
those.
now. Yeah, it's pretty cool actually. It's literally just like a regular hormone implant, but because my body's been geared towards hormones by now, my body naturally keeps my testosterone down. So it literally only uses the hormones that it needs, and I'm at a point in my transition in my life where I'm equal to a girl next to me, right? Like we have the same hormone profile. If not, I have less testosterone than most women now, which is a huge thing.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
What would you say to a young girl or boy who is feeling like they don't belong in their own skin? What would you say to them? Do you have a certain mantra or something that you typically think that really helped you?
My focus is always on like do the small things, the small steps. I like the way I say it is like I talked about the leggings earlier, right? Like I didn't find out I was trans one day and to take the hormones the next day, right? The next day I went and I had one singular conversation about being trans. And then the day after that, I wore one clothing item. And then it's just over time, right? It took me a year to even work up to taking the pill. And then a year after that to get to like implants and other changes, right? So for somebody who's still way back at that first stage of I don't know what's going on, take small steps, do small experiments. That's what I called it for the first like 6 months is, it's just a big old experiment.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, it's just about collect the small goals. And eventually you look back and you're like, oh, I did it. I'm here.
Wow.
That makes a lot of sense.
Did you ever waver being like, I'm not sure if I want to keep going down this path or...
It's a big responsibility.
When somebody is, has stayed up to 2 a.m. and they've, smoked a little bit of weed, they, tend to have thoughts that, maybe this is all just too much. And then I wake up the next morning and I'm like, no, like this is who I am. This is exactly who I am. Right. And it's the waking up every morning that reinforces me, right? The waking up every morning, looking in the mirror and saying, this is exactly where I want it to be. And this is exactly where I want to be going. Right. Everybody's going to have doubts, and it doesn't make you any less trans to have doubts about it. The fact of the matter is, are you asking the questions? And when you answer those questions for yourself, how does that make you feel? And if the conclusion you come to is that you're trans, voila, you did it.
Take it day by day.
Yeah, day by day. It's a slow, long process. And even now I'm struggling with not seeing instant results with certain things, right? It's really like you're going to get a year in and you're not going to even realize that you have so much left to change and so much longer to go.
It's interesting because I remember during watching the show and getting back to the Queer Eye segment that we saw, one of the guys was saying, it's not about coming out, it's about letting people in. That was so moving to me as well. Like, what do you think about that statement?
It's become one of my mantras. It's something that I bring up all the time. It's so important that we frame our lives from a personal standpoint, right? Like we're so focused on like we have to present ourselves to the world, when in reality, it's about bringing the world into you, right? Giving the world permission to see you for who you are and to accept you and to validate you, right? It goes into conversations like, oh, if you mess up, it's okay as long as you correct yourself. Because the moment you correct yourself, you validate me because you see that you messed up and you correct, right? That's a validation. You're not hurting my feelings. You're validating me, right? And it all goes back into I'm inviting you, anybody, to come to me and to learn more and let me teach you. And in return, you'll also teach me about yourself.
It's a beautiful thing. That applies to everyone.
Cam, did you see why I hunted her down in the parking lot? Do you see?
I think that sounds like a Cam's upper situation.
Oh God, don't even go there.
We have a segment of the week where I share something near and dear to my heart that my mother is typically she's bored by.
Oh, that was me snoring.
But surprise, she's never really bored by it, and I think this is.
I just got to give him some
thing.
shit. It is beautiful. We'll remember this as well.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. It's the single most thing that I can say that I took away from the episode is the idea that we have to navigate the world from our own point of view and not be so focused on everybody else.
Yeah.
Well,
totally.
that's our manifestos. We give little shits. Or is it any shits?
We give
no
no fucks.
shits. No fucks, no shits, no nothing.
Nah.
Cam, back in college, I don't know if you knew this, but I was a smoker and I had such a difficult time when I tried to quit.
What'd you do to quit?
Basically, your father just broke all my cigarettes in half.
Sounds like a waste of money. I have a better solution these days, Mom.
And what would that be, honey?
It's called Fume. Fume is the natural inhaler designed for a better, safer, and natural way to quit cigarettes.
A lot of the reason people smoke is like a habit of holding something and smoking something.
Yeah, and this allows you to replace that habit because they give you a handcrafted wooden inhaler. It smells delicious. I have one, by the way. And they use these cores, which are infused with plant oils studied to curb cravings.
It's a no smoke, no vape, and no nicotine replacement for that hand-to-mouth habit of smoking, which I was just talking about.
They have flavors like peppermint and conqueror with minty notes to stimulate menthol, cigarettes, and other flavors like cozy chai for a sweeter experience. I actually have this on my desk because when I get anxious, it's a nice thing to actually just relax me and soothe me. I've really enjoyed this. Quitting is tough, okay? But Fume really can help. They've got thousands of 5-star reviews from smokers who have tried everything else, and this worked. Head to breathefume.com/mom and use code MOM to save 10% off your entire order. That's 10% off your entire order when you head to breathefum.com/mom and use code MOM. Check out our episode's description for that link.
Quit smoking soon.
We have a bunch more questions for you, but I want to let our listeners in. And we do this by texting our sneaky freaks. You sneaky freak listeners, you can text us at 310-356.
3920.
That's our text number.
That's our text number.
You can give us a text. We'll send you a weekly question.
Angel, we'll give you the phone number later.
You could tune on in, Angel.
We text every week. Well, actually, Cam does the texting, but we collaborate and come up with the questions.
So this week we said, hey, happy Monday, freaky fam. We'll be speaking with Angel Flores this week. She's a queer eye hero, trans woman, powerlifting champion, and Olympic weightlifting coach. Do you have a question for her? And we got a bunch of questions. Some of them are sweet. Some of them are fucking raunchy, and we're going to skewer you. Are you ready to dive in?
Let's do it. I'm here.
Okay.
You want a sweet or salty?
Let's
start easy.
sweet and go salty.
Yes. So Megan says, I loved her episode. So Megan is already a fan.
We never even got to the fact that she ended up going on to an episode.
What do you mean?
Well, when she said Netflix called and wait, we got to start at the beginning. So we didn't even get to what it was like being on the show. But anyway, Megan loved it.
Okay. Everyone can watch it on Netflix. It's called Queer Eye, season 6, episode 2. Okay. Check it out. Megan goes on to ask, what is your best tip for someone that is starting to weightlift and feeling intimidated by the gym?
Oh, it's going to be the same tip that I give everybody else. But when it comes to weightlifting in general, you have to focus on technique and don't get so caught up in the numbers. Like, take videos of yourself and pay attention more to how you move and how you guide yourself through that movement. It's so much more important than trying to aim for big weights or trying to work the hardest. Over time, if you just get good at the movement initially, over time, you're going to get stronger, you're going to get better, and you're just going to improve, period. The more time you spend with it, that's time equals improvement, whether it's in technique or strength or anything else. And beyond that, start small, build up, like other stuff, build up, do the small things.
Like what you were saying before about, just take one step at a time and make it small goals.
Exactly.
What, just this is out of personal interest, how do you learn the movements initially?
I would say number one thing is either do a royal fuck ton of research or get a coach. It's so important that you have either a basis to work off of, whether it be a coach online or a content creator online who can give you that information, or an eye on your body, a coach who's looking at you, is watching you. I'd say for most people, at least do like 2 weeks of coaching.
You gotta be crazy. Can you imagine me going in the gym like, let me lift up some weights? The thing would fall on my face and damage me for life.
People do that all the time. And it's just like, if people they'll come in and not know what they're doing, and then they get intimidated and they have to leave. And that's the case for a lot of trans people, is that they'll walk in and they'll think that they know what they're doing and they still struggle, especially after hormones. So do at least 2 weeks, like 5 sessions, get to know somebody, have them look over the fundamentals of how you move, and then do what you will, whether it be normal 3 days a week training or elite athletics.
Okay.
We had a question from Cassie, who says, I love Angel, another fan of yours. I began following her on Instagram after I saw the episode on Queer Eye. She is one of my inspirations for starting weight training myself.
Wow, you influenced a lot of people there, Angel. Jeez.
Can you ask her what she did to keep the positive momentum after the Queer Eye crew left? It seems like having all that energy around for a week and then everyone packing up and leaving would feel very empty at first.
So can you first start with like a quick synopsis of what it was like working with the Queer Eye people?
Yeah. So for filming itself, it was about like a week-long affair with 2 extra film days separately from that week. But they really do get the entire Queer Eye episode done in that week. They picked me up on Tuesday. I was done by Friday. So I'm surrounded by dozens of people who are at my every whim for an entire week, who are talking me up for the entire week. Producers who were like basically still dating me at this point, like flirting with me almost on set. Like
It is
my
incredible
God.
because Cam and I had this experience on 2 different times. One was Tosh Point and the other one was Megyn Kelly on Good Morning America or whatever. And I thought, oh, these people love me so much, and afterwards we're going to go and hang out and everything. And as soon as the thing is done, Megyn Kelly's like, okay, see ya. And it was like, what? We're not going to be friends anymore? It's just like, it's
and
just,
then you're like, what do I do?
Ghosted. Yeah.
Exactly. Is that what it felt like?
Oh, absolutely. Like the week after, I was like, what do I do now? I have all this stuff now. What do I do?
they redecorate your whole place. They give you a little makeover, haircut, beauty stuff, a whole wardrobe change.
Did you have a favorite person?
Oh, well, that's that. I'll get to that in a second here, because I'm about to talk about the one thing that saved the entire experience for me. Because after that week, I was truly like, I don't know what I'm going to do for the next 8 months. I don't know when this episode's going to release. And Jonathan JVN ended up messaging me like a month later, I think, maybe, basically
Jonathan
saying,
Van
hey,
Ness.
Yep, Jonathan Van Ness, and essentially saying, hey, my trainer can no longer be here in Austin with me. I need a local trainer who can help me prepare for my gymnastics routines. And I was like, well, I know a girl that does that. And it's been weekly with me and Jonathan for the past 8 months, I think. 8 months. I'm seeing JVN like as much as 5 times a week. If not more than that.
Damn.
I have this amazing privilege to be able to spend my time with somebody who not only relates so strongly to me, but has so much wisdom from their just years of doing this.
Right. If you're anything like me, when I'm being trained by my Pilates instructor, it's mostly me talking nonstop. It's
absolutely. That's exactly how it is. We will not shut up when we're with each other.
Oh, it's adorable.
It's such
How lucky that you could keep this, it's keeping the momentum going.
What a role model for you too, right?
Absolutely. And Jonathan was the one that I latched on to the most during the episode. No shade to the other 4. I loved y'all, but me and Jonathan spent like 9 hours in that salon together.
Oh, damn.
So it was really just us just stuck together. I really wish they could just cut like a 45-minute long episode of just me and Jonathan talking.
Wow.
Because we said so much. Like, it was just such a wonderful conversation in there.
It was what we call in Yiddish, which is Jewish language, it was called a shidduch, or a marriage, or something fate brought together.
Yeah, it was like, it literally felt like we had just, we've been friends the whole time. Like that's what it felt like. It just, we related to each other. And
you might have been in a prior life.
Everything. Maybe. I mean, I would not doubt it, the way that our souls just seem to just mesh.
And you didn't really speak about your dad. And I would definitely want to get to that. Do you have a question regarding that?
There were no questions that came up, but I definitely, you can go if you have a question.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the part that really got me all, I was so moved when your dad came, because I guess you hadn't spoken to your dad for about a year or so.
Yep, it was about a year. Like, it was a really long year.
Prior to that, the last conversation you had with him, what was that like?
The last conversation we had face to face was my conversation essentially telling him that I was going to start hormones the next day.
Holy shit.
And it was essentially like I texted my mom and
you had talked to your mom first, or your dad? Were they together, or how did they?
My mom had known for a while that I was going to do it. I was all set. My very first doctor's appointment, I walked in, the doctor saw me, the psychiatrist saw me, and they were both like, we're going to give you the prescription today if you want. And so I waited on it for a good 6 months because I wasn't ready to have that conversation with my parents. Within a month of that first appointment, I had spoken to my mom and said, like, look, like, this is going to happen whether or not you like it. And she's been the one that initially did the most work. Like, she figured out what she needed to figure out, and she jumped right in. And she was like, whatever you need, I'm here. For my dad,
and your mom is Filipino. Was she from the Philippines? I mean, or was she born in the Philippines?
Her dad is from the Philippines.
So, I mean, you're talking about cultures that don't readily accept even being bisexual, right? I mean,
you'd be surprised how accepting the Filipino culture is, especially American Filipino culture.
I wouldn't be surprised because I happen to love them. I don't know why I've bonded with them, but go on.
But like it was surprisingly, she was the one that just jumped up. Like she did her time figuring it out, and that was it. She used my name early on. She was using my pronouns early on. It was my dad that I always just had the fear, and rightfully so, because the previous conversations we had about me possibly transitioning had always been negative.
That's what I'm getting at. So like the first conversation you had with him, you just went and said, I'm thinking of transitioning. And he was like, what?
I mean, I hadn't even said anything about hormones or anything. It was just that very first day that I put my first outfit on and I went to Austin Pride and I sent my parents a picture and I was like, by the way, I want y'all to know that this is happening before anybody else knows that this is happening. And we had a long talk, and essentially the conclusion was, we don't know what you're doing, but you're going to figure it out. and rightfully so, because they were so taken aback by just the sudden switch. Because like we had talked about earlier, I've always been the athlete. I've always been hypermasculine. I've always been just like me. And funnily enough, I'm still mostly that way, just in a slightly different body. And to get back to my original point, that last conversation with my dad, where essentially I had to sit there and say, you know what, I'm not listening to you anymore. That was the big fear.
Damn.
And honestly, his position was very much out of fear, and I don't blame him for it at all. Because the first questions he asked were, are you going to be okay walking around in public? Are you going to get a job? How are you going to support yourself? What is your future going to look like? Right. And, I was angry for a little bit, but thinking back now, it's always been, he just cares. And that fear of life changing for his child, the son that he raised, life changing so drastically for them, I can understand what that feels like, especially like from the perspective of a child looking up at their father. And ultimately, I think that's what brought us back around full circle, is that he saw that he didn't need to be scared anymore.
Wow. Oh, I got more goosebumps.
Yeah, I mean, that part of the episode where they bring you guys together is so powerful. And what did it feel manufactured because it was on camera and it looks so natural and organic that it didn't.
It's hard to make those tears flow like that.
Every second of that episode was genuine, period.
Which is so unusual for reality TV. It's the opposite of what Cam was on reality TV.
I was on America's Got Talent.
We don't want to talk about him spitting in each other's mouth. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, we were on for like 3 minutes spitting into each other's mouths. It was not the exact same moving.
Before
it was moving
COVID,
in a different
thank
way.
God.
Yeah. But yeah,
I'm sure it was impressive regardless.
Thank you. It did seem very genuine though when we were watching it. And it makes sense that they'd be nominated for Emmys because like they create these amazing moments.
Well, when your dad walked in, and we had gotten a little preview. Well, I don't want to blow it for the whole anybody who's not seen. A spoiler alert: when her dad walked in, it just, you can't make that up. That it was genuine. Like just you could see the love he had for you, and like you said, I think also the comfort that you're going to be okay because the way you presented yourself. Yeah,
and that's what I've been telling everybody, is that it was so authentic that if I had looked at Karamo in that moment and said, I don't want to see him, it wouldn't have happened. Like he would have been told to leave, and that would be it.
I hadn't really watched this season. I only watched prior seasons when Carson was on. So I haven't never watched and this troop. I think more than one. Just a couple episodes. That's it.
So when you went through that experience, I mean, what did it feel like for you to reunite with him?
Oh, it's like everything came full circle. Definitely I felt the hole in my life for that first year very much. It's funny because when we're apart, I'm horrible at texting, communicating. And when we're apart, it's always just kind of been like, we'll talk when we talk. But I think it was just the idea of I can't reach out, period. That was just like bugging me throughout that entire year.
What would have happened? What would have happened if you had reached out? Would he have hung up on you, or?
I don't know. I think I was just scared, and he was most definitely scared as well. He looked at me and he said, "I'm not sure if we can talk for a little while." In that last conversation,
it breaks my heart.
So, and you know what? It broke my heart too. And to have him come back and say, "You know what? I did the work," and you know what? To hear from my own mom that he had been doing the work, that there were other family members that were like talking shit about me, and that he was coming back and defending me, right? It kept my faith that I was always going to be his kid, and it's going to take him some time. And ultimately that's what it needed, is just time.
And I think one of the reasons why he was able to come around is because, I mean, you're very patient and you're very compassionate. Because I can imagine someone in the same circumstance being like, fuck this person. Like, if they don't want to accept me, they're out of my life, or, So
yeah, you would probably be like that for me
in this situation.
What if I had said I wouldn't accept you?
You'd be gone.
I'd be gone.
No. There would be compassion. Anyway, yeah. I mean, it was a beautiful moment.
Thank you for that. And I keep reinforcing to people that there was never a moment that I doubted that he would come around. I know that that's a privilege that a lot of people like me don't have, that their parents leave and they're gone. But for me, it was always a matter of when as opposed to if.
Which is different. We interviewed a porn star named Jessie Dubai, and she, I believe, it was a long time ago, several years ago, and I can't remember shit, but I believe she told her dad, and the dad beat her up. Do you remember that?
Yeah, it was a wild story, and I can't remember if they came together at the end of it now.
They did come back together, but I think he ended up coming out as gay. The father came out as gay.
Right.
But it is
it's so wrapped up. And
can you imagine beating your child up because they said that they didn't fit in their own skin? I
certainly can't, but I'm sure somebody else can.
But this again was several years ago and again it was a Latino community, which is very, I would say very prejudiced against any of this.
Well, by the way, I'm also, my dad was from Argentina, and we
very
identify
macho.
As Latin, so I know that. I know that machismo as well. I could imagine in my family that would be a very challenging thing to.
I remember we were driving in a car somewhere. It was you and your brother in the back seat, and me and Dad in the front seat, and for whatever reason, someone was talking about something, and your father turns and says, if either of you, identified as being gay, I'd be accepting of it. And your brother goes, I'm not going to turn gay. I mean, it was just like he was such a little boy at the time to say that. He was like 10 years old or something.
Oh, my God.
But it's like even young kids know the stigma that is attached to it, and parental acceptance. They know that, if the parent is going to be more open to it or not open to it.
Yeah, and definitely for me going into college, it was very much a question of I was more or less supposed to be like the big like star of the family, right? Not the big star, but like I'm going to the University of Texas. I'm still playing sports. I'm getting good grades. I'm gonna go get a big degree. And so for my extended family, especially, I know it was one hell of a switch to go from like, oh, he's in college doing big things to, oh, she's still in college doing big things, but and I know that machismo culture is still something that is being contended with, both from me and from other family members within my family.
Oh, we had some questions about sex.
We did. We're coming towards the end, but we obviously have to include one question about sex. We had one from Jay, which was, how has your sex life changed as you've transitioned?
So, big reduction.
Oh, a reduction.
No,
Like-
production or reduction?
Reduction
Oh.
in like just like period, like sex life period. I don't like testosterone going from 700 units to 12 is definitely a huge jump.
Wow.
And it definitely has some really distinct effects, both like fatigue and other things, stress, and then my sex drive is just like poof sometimes, like it's just not there.
So what do you do in those situations if, you or your partner want to have sex, but it's just the drive is not there?
We're still kind of working through it, to be completely honest, because I know it's something that I need to work on personally. I try and give her as much intimacy as possible, right? And in that moment, even if I can't work myself up to like having a full on like sex, it's very much I'll sit and I'll cuddle and I whatever I can do in this moment to make you feel loved. That's what I'm trying to do.
You could do
right?
what I always recommend, which is give a massage.
Big one right there. I mean, massage. Honestly, for Kathy, it's really big on like quality time. Like
Sure.
she needs me there, she needs me present, and I think we've gotten to a point in the relationship where she can understand that I'm just not gonna be there all the time, like sex drive wise, and that sometimes I just need a moment.
Interesting.
It may level out too once you adjust completely to all the hormone changes.
So we're actually, just to cover a quick problem that I'm having, my body is taking not some, but all of my testosterone and converting it to estrogen, which is one of the reasons why my sex drive is just non-existent.
Sure.
Because there's some times that my testosterone is just non-existent. It comes with other symptoms like nausea, fatigue, bone density loss, other kind of fucked up shit.
Welcome to my postmenopausal world.
Yeah, I definitely feeling a little bit of that pain occasionally, and we're working to fix it. But I do notice that like when the testosterone starts to balance out, things start to balance out. So hopefully at some point I'll get to a point where I feel level with that kind of stuff.
When we had Buck Angel on the show,
Who was also a porn star who was the first female who was it female or just person in general to take hormone replacement or to change?
I think it was maybe the first person in general to take hormone replacement. It was
He
like
is-
super.
Yeah, he's like almost my age. I think he's ancient,
He's ancient,
but he's a big
He does call himself the Trampa.
and he looks like.
I know Trampa.
Oh, you know
I do
Trampa, of course.
That's like, I was like, I know what you're talking about.
Oh, we got to
So-
introduce you to Trampa. He's awesome.
So he was talking about DHEA. Is that what it's called? Or like there's a.
Yes.
So
Yes.
have you messed with that at all or no?
I think DHEA is one of the chemicals that gets fucked around with to kind of help that. I'm taking a supplement called DIM, which is found naturally in like broccoli, cauliflower, and other stuff.
Oh.
I just need to take a fuck ton of it to see the results that I need to see. To see the results that I need to see.
Or take a certain type of weed that's really good for sex.
I would love that as well.
There's a lot of good weed out there. We've done a lot of TikTok videos about this.
I need to expand my collection, honestly.
You need to expand, and I guarantee you will see some big changes. Massage and weed.
Have you
You heard it here.
Have you found that the type of sex actually changes, like are more acts more intriguing to you now than they were before?
You still have all your
Oh,
parts.
absolutely.
Did you not remove? Okay.
Nope. I am still non-op. I'm still non-surgery. I'm still all here. I
just
guess I would
gives you
still be all
more-
here because it's just like a switch.
It gives you
What's
more
that?
things. It gives you more things to play with.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. I actually find a lot of pride in my body. I never really felt like dysphoria regarding any kind of surgical procedures or anything. So I'm kind of here and I'm comfortable. To answer your question, yes. And really it was kind of disconnecting performance from sex. Because I, as like before transition, still identifying as a boy, I wasn't having sex to feel good. I was having sex to perform because the act of sex wasn't pleasurable for me. I didn't get euphoria out of it. It was more pleasurable to know that my partner was feeling good, right?
Sounds like someone I know.
So to switch gears entirely and to think about sex more of like, I want to feel good. She wants to feel good. And that's the most important thing. It's not about performing in any way. It really just changed everything about the act. And also my girlfriend herself started touching me and treating me more like a girl, you know, like focusing on like grabbing my waist or doing other small things where she's not focusing on very masculine erogenous areas. She's experimenting and she's finding new ways to make me feel good.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I really haven't had the chance to talk about that yet. So thank you for giving me the space to talk
any
about
other?
that.
Of course.
We'll dig in deeper. We got more questions where that came from.
We unfortunately we have to wrap it up.
We're ending on a high note.
We
then.
got to end on a high note. If people want to find you, what do you want to share with them?
If you want to find me, just go to my Instagram. It's @ArchangelJoy. And that's basically it. You can find everything you need from me through those links through my bio or down in the feed.
So Archangels, ARKANGEL JOY.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And if they want to watch that Queer Eye episode, it's season 6, episode 2.
I highly recommend you Sneaky Freaks to watch that episode. It is beautiful.
You have been an absolute joy to talk to.
Yeah, you're a sweetheart.
Thank you so much for taking the time. You were not intimidated by my mother when she came bulldozing. I'm so grateful for that. And you were an absolute delight to talk to. So thank you so much for coming on.
No, thank y'all so much. This is a great conversation.
Okay, do you want to sing them out, Moot?
And let me I do this every time. And let me tell you about the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees and weightlifting and hoping you don't crush yourself.
All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. We love you. A big thank you to all of our Patreon members for making this show possible. If you'd like to support the show, please go to patreon.com/sextalkwithmymom. We really appreciate any ratings and reviews that you can share wherever you're listening to this.
Yes.
And
you go to ratethispodcast.com/mom again and write a review.
And lastly, I want to thank Bob B, our patron, Sneaky Freak, Big Papa Bob B, for making this episode possible. You rock. And thank you all. Love you.
Love you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You were listening to a Pleasure Podcast. For more from our Sex Podcast Collective, visit pleasurepodcasts.com.